Struggling against one of the tentacles, Yosuke bought, brought his hand to his chest, where he closed a fist over his bare neck as if grasping for something. You've seen it, haven't you? There's a part of me that wants to be confined. It's horribly ironic, isn't it? You fought to release me, yet as long as I and yet I long to return to my cage like a dog that lost its master. Akira realized what it was he was talking about. Even Yosuke's own persona exposed a part of him he was ashamed of, evident in the collar and lock it wore around its neck. But I'm not. I wouldn't. But he did. He loved how pitiful Yosuke was. It made him so endearing. He loved being the only person who cared about him enough to offer him a place to stay. He loved feeding him and taking care of him because he knew that Yosuke would keep coming back like a stray. Gradually becoming more and more dependent on him, the thought of being separated from him was enough to make Akira shake in fear, terrified that Yosuke would find a way to live without him, or worse, that he'd replace him with someone else. None of his intentions were as pure and righteous as he thought. I'm sorry, It was too hard to keep denying it. The truth was right there in front of his eyes. Having taken the shape of that horrible thing, made real in each of the tentacles it used to strap Yosuke's body, yet despite its unsightliness, Yosuke had willingly allowed himself to be bound by it, and even to appear to be enjoying its touch. Mara chuckled. Just give it up already. Listen to the boys moaning. Does that sound like someone who's suffering to you? Body lax, supported entirely by the tentacles Mara had wrapped around his limbs. Yosuke turned his head against his shoulders and looked at Akira. His eyes half lidded beneath the mask. You should give this a try. Oh my gosh. I can't freaking do this. You should give this a try for yourself, he said. He laughed a little, ha ha ha, aware that Akira would never. It's fine. It's fine because I trust you. If there were a reason for me to not trust you, I'm sure I would have discovered it here. This persona of yours. Its appearance may be foreign and frightening, but I haven't felt threatened this whole time. It knows just how to hold me without hurting me. He wiggled his feet off the ground, and this is kind of fun. It feels like I'm weightless. That's 'cause you don't weigh much, kid, Mara said, demonstrating how easy it was to lift him by lift him by effortlessly raising him farther off the ground. With the panic in him settling, Akira was able to relax somewhat. He looked between Yosuke and Mara, feeling suddenly he was an uninvited guest. You two do seem awfully cozy. Does this mean you were aware of all of this before I was? I apologize for not broaching the subject sooner, Yosuke said. After Madarame, I had a lot to think about, like how lost I felt, and how desperate I was to cling to you. I thought that I was just using you and you acting as a burden until I noticed this part of you. So you're cool with me wanting to own you or whatever? Admitting that aloud took a lot of effort, but it also didn't make him feel better. Do you, though? Yosuke stared at him as Mara rocked him gently, only breaking focus when he needed to stop his mask from falling off his face. When Mara tipped him back a little too far, He straightened up quickly, and Mara allowed him to stand upright, placing him back on his feet. See? He said, waving his arms after they'd been freed. You'll let go if I ask you to. You said so earlier. I don't feel trapped with you like I was with Madarame. Akira felt foolish for having worried. The reason he was afraid to acknowledge Mara as his persona was because he was afraid of those strong feelings within himself. Those feelings that made him so possessive of Yosuke. He'd been afraid that he wasn't so different from the person he'd helped Yosuke escape from. Thankfully, Yosuke was a step ahead of him, having actually peered into his heart to confirm that he was worth trusting. Knowing that made it easier for Akira to trust himself. So, Mara lifted a tentacle and placed the tip of it on Akira's shoulder to have his attention. Akira grimaced at it. What do you say, master? Wanna double team this bitch with me? Akira didn't even have a proper response for that. He swatted the offending tentacle off his shoulders. Such a disgusted noise. Who taught you to speak that way? You did. I did not. But look at him, Mara said, gesturing its tentacles at Yosuke's disheveled, flustered appearance. Akira was much more concerned about the way Mara using its tentacles as hands. When it had perfectly good hands it could be using. He's like a bitch and he ain't he. He's already compared himself to a dog. Just let him have this. Besides, do you know how awesome it feels for me to meet somebody who doesn't laugh or scream as soon as they see me? I've been waiting for this. I don't want to know what that's supposed to say about me, Akira muttered, staring blankly at the ground. At some point, Yosuke found his sketchbook and had resumed drawing, oblivious to their banting. Akira didn't doubt that it'd be a great drawing, but he prayed that Yosuke wouldn't show it to anyone. If a teacher saw it, he'd probably get in trouble for it. After quickly finishing some details, Yosuke closed the sketchbook and ran inside the booth to set it down safely, then returned looking just as red-faced and ready as before. Let's do it. Akira looked between them. Are you serious? If I'm serious, then so are you, Mara said. A high ground apparently didn't exist. Arguing with it was utterly pointless. Double team him. Akira didn't know what Mara planned to do with him, but it sounded obscene. Naturally, as Akira followed a few R-rated thoughts into his mind, Mara's tentacles began to approach Yosuke again. Yosuke, who tail wagging looked very eager to also find out what Mara planned to do with him. One of those tentacles reached towards Yosuke's chest and dexterously curled around the zipper pull at the front of his outfit. Yosuke fidgeted anxiously as he began to lower the zipper inch by inch, exposing perfectly pale skin underneath. It was just Mara.